What's up, guys? So today we're going to be going over a little bit of data types in C++, functions in C++, and how to call them in your main. A little bit about declaring variables as well. Okay, so first off, what are data types in C++? So essentially, data types are different are, as the name suggests, they are different types of data. So there are a couple key data types that you need to know. There's an integer, which represents whole numbers, such as that aren't fractions or decimals. So for example, 5, 10, 15, 12, -4, those are all integers. There are floats, which are basically integers, but they have decimal values as well, like 5.53, 4.32, 9.32. Anything with a decimal value is a float. There are chars, which are represented by single characters. Basically, they're letters of the alphabet. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are all chars. Then you have what are called strings. And a key note about strings is that you must use / include string to use them. And they are literally basically any combination of words. So Jake does computer science. That's a string. Anything like that. And then, is there another one? I don't believe there's another one. Yeah, those are the 4 basic data types that you need to know. Now let's say you want to tell your compiler, hey, I want to have an integer and have it equal to 15. Usually, we would declare that using what is called a variable. And to do that, we would essentially declare first the data type. For example, if you want to declare an integer variable, we would declare with keyword int. And then we would declare, we would write the variable name. For example, my variable, write equal sign to tell the compiler what is the value that you want to assign to your variable. And then we would write the variable we want to assign to it, like the value we want to assign to our variable. For example, 54. And now let's say we want to print that my variable to the terminal. So we would do svc out, my variable, std and out. Now to test it, we will compile it with G++, and then run it with a.out. And we could see that it prints out 54 to the terminal to 55. Now let's say we want to we want to print like a very large integer, for example, like that. Compiling it. Oh, maybe it's a little too big. Whoops. All right, let's say we want to print, for example, this to the terminal. We can see that it compiles perfectly fine. And if we run it, it'll print it out to the terminal perfectly well. However, let's say we want to print a bunch of different variables. For example, we want to declare my float is 43.43. We want to declare a char of A, and then we want to see out them to the terminal like this. What's that? Oh, I forgot to hit semicolon. svc out, my char, std and out. I want to print them like 5 times to the terminal. svc out, my variable. This takes way too long. This is going to take forever to write. Instead, what we could do is that we could encapsulate this code within a function. Now, a function is essentially a block of code that executes whatever code is within it for you. Now, to declare a function, we essentially would do the following. I'm going to get a little bit more in depth into these later in the video series, but for now, all you have to know is that this represents the return type of the function. Void means that our function will not return anything. It will simply do the code within it. So we would write void, then we would write the function name, so my function, and then we would write its arguments. Now, because we are couting an integer, a float, and a char, we would write its arguments as my integer, float, my float, char, my char. Now, your variable names for your arguments can be literally anything that you want, but I chose these names for simplicity and readability for educational purposes. Now, because we want to see out these to the terminal, we would write the code in the function. So we will do svd cout, my integer, svnl, svd cout, my float, svnl, svd cout, my char, svnl. Very good. Now, to run the code within this function, what we would have to do is we would have to call it. As essentially telling your function, hey, we want to use you right now. Please do the code within you. So to call it, we would basically do something like this. We would write the function name, and then we'd write the arguments that we want to pass to our function. And arguments are essentially these right here. They are the variables that you want your function to be able to use. Now we would do something like this. So first off, we declared an integer. Now this is very important when working with functions to pass your arguments to the function in the order in which they are declared. For example, because we declared an integer first within our arguments, we would have to pass an integer first within our argument. So we would declare it like this. My variable. Next, we would declare the float. So we're going to have to write my float. And then next, we declare the char. So we're going to have to do my char. And that is it. So if we g++ this file, and then we run it with a.out, we could see that it runs perfectly fine. It outs the values that we wanted to see out: 5493, 34.34, and A. And that is basically it. So in this video, we covered basic primitives data types that everyone should know. We went over functions and a little bit into what they are. And we went over how to call a function inside of your main. Now, in the next video and in videos after that, I'm going to be going over a little bit about something called for loops, while loops, a little bit into switch statements, and a little bit more into detail about functions and then their return types. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.